Good morning, I'm Councillor Nikki Brennan and I will be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee C of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, can we all please mute our microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure. Can you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of committee members unless you are the person speaking. This is to reduce bandwidth. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could everyone attending today's meeting please put their mobile phone onto silent and ensure that they are situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or unnecessary noise. Thank you for that. I am speaking slowly and clearly so everybody can follow. It is vitally important for what I hope are obvious reasons that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and the members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in this meeting being temporarily suspended or to another date and time under regulations for these type of meetings. I can also confirm that this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. Members are reminded that they must declare any relevant pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed in this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared by a member, they must not take part or speak in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect of La Casa Boreola, 3 York Road, Erdington, Birmingham, B23 6TE. I'll begin with some introductions. As stated previously, I am Councillor Nikki Brennan and I am chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are members of the subcommittee, Councillor Mike Leddy, and Councillor Mike Ward. Also present in this meeting are the following officers. Licensing Officer David Kennedy.
Good morning, Chair.
Committee Manager Sophia Mirza.
Good morning.
Committee Lawyer Joanne Swampilli.
Good morning, Chair.
I now ask that all parties identify themselves, please. Firstly, the applicants.
Good morning, Chair. Hotspot Alleyways from Midlands Police Licensing. I'm joined by...
You're not the applicant, it's the premises, that would be the applicant.
Apologies.
No problem.
Mr. Juror, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. Yes, my name is Marian Dura, and I start a new business on the Erdington, next to the High Street. And
Thank you, Mr. Juror. We will get to your presentation. It's just to introduce yourself at the moment.
Okay.
And next, those making representations. So I'll ask Councillor Gareth Moore.
It's Councillor Moore here, one of the councillors for Erdington. At some point before we start, I'd like to make a point of clarification regarding my representation and some of the press coverage that's been made. I just think I should make that clear, given this is a public meeting. Yeah. Whenever you're happy for me to do that.
Thank you. And West Midlands Police.
Hi there, Hotspot Licensing Officer. I'm joined by a member of the neighbourhood team. I'll let her introduce herself.
Good morning, PC Inai Aziz from the Erdington Police and Neighbourhood team.
Thank you. Can I ask any persons would like making representations wishes to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee procedural rules set out today with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online, but wish to assure you all that any such amendments will not impact on the parties' right to a fair hearing. We will be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of the icons on the toolbar is a speech bubble. Click the speech bubble to go onto the chat. If you do not have access to the chat function for any reason, please use the raise a hand function to indicate you wish to speak. That button is usually fourth from the right on the toolbar. You can also, of course, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Can you all now confirm that you have access to the chat facility by typing your own name now, and officers will also type their job title. The meeting will not proceed until you have done so.
Chair, it won't let me type in the chat. It says I don't have access to it.
Okay, that's fine. If you need to speak, can you just do the raise your hand function or just say speak?
Sure thing.
Thank you. So please keep this chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting in order that everyone can follow the messages being posted in the chat. With the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your cameras off unless you are the person speaking. If there are any problems with bandwidth which cause difficulties with the sound, I may in my discretion ask everyone to turn their cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone being able to hear and be heard. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this point of the meeting? If so, please indicate by saying speak into the chat function or using the raise your hand function now. Okay, thank you. I'll briefly outline the procedure.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Moore's raised his hand. Chair.
Oh, sorry, I missed his hand completely. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out that within my representation, I made reference to a member of staff being present with rape on the high street. Unfortunately, Birmingham Live have incorrectly stated that this was a police officer. I just want to clarify that is not the case. Their article is incorrect. However, I don't want to identify the member of staff because clearly it's a very serious incident they've gone through, and I wouldn't want that to be identified in the public domain for obvious reasons, which I'm sure you'll appreciate.
Thank you very much for that. So now I'll briefly outline the procedure which will be following at today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer will present the report. Then the applicant and their representative will be asked to present their case, and we're asking that this could be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Then those making representations will be invited to make their case again, and we'll be asking that this is approximately 20 minutes for this part of the hearing. Can I ask that all parties speak slowly and clearly as they possibly can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and the meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council website. If at any time it is somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but will try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or those present, please signify this by using the chat facility set out on the right-hand side of the screen on the meeting. The meeting manager will alert me if I do not notice a message in the chat. I will determine verbally or in writing on the chat facility the order in which questions are dealt with. Additionally, you may wish to seek a notify a question or point verbally in the usual way at the appropriate time. So at any point of the meeting, if you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function and the meeting manager will ensure that we come to you at the appropriate part. If at any point you cannot hear or are having problems with your internet connection, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager. The chair will then ask the person speaking to repeat what they just said, and it is therefore important that we use the chat function as soon as you're unable to hear the person speaking. It may be that the problem is caused by people still having their microphones or cameras on, which creates interference. So I'll ask again that everyone please mute their microphone and turn off their cameras if they're not the person speaking. Could I point out that occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice? At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. We will then return to the meeting and continue. Please note that if at any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I will ask all of you to mute your microphones and turn off your cameras and stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any point this meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I will ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before continuing. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. Can I stress that no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard? At the decision-making stage, the members and relevant officers will withdraw from the meeting in order to determine the decision. They will go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any points, you will be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. A notification of the determination of the application will be sent out to all parties within 5 working days. So I hope that is reasonably straightforward. So with that, can the licensing officer, David Kennedy, present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. La Casa Bruyere Limited applied on the 18th of October 2021 for the grant of a premises licence for La Casa Bruyere, 3 York Road, Erdington, Birmingham, B23 6TE. The purpose of the report is to consider representations that have been made in respect of the application, which seeks to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises only. Unfortunately, there was an error in the typographical error in the published report, which suggests it's on sales, but the application solely relates to off sales, to operate from 11 AM until 10:30 PM Monday to Sunday, with the premises to remain open to the public from 8:30 AM until 11 PM Monday to Sunday. A representation has been received from West Midlands Police, which is attached to Appendix 1. Representations have been received from other persons, which are attached to Appendix 2. The application is at Appendix 3. Conditions have been agreed with the Birmingham City Council's licensing enforcement and the applicant, which are attached to Appendix 4, and site location plans are at Appendix 5. Councillors Moore and Alden have submitted a supplementary evidence bundle, which is published at pages 31 to 33 of the agenda pack. And West Midlands Police have also submitted a supplementary evidence bundle, which is published at pages 35 to 44 of the agenda pack. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's statement of licensing policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Act. The licensing authority is required to take such steps as it considers appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives. The options available to the committee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the licence any of the licensed activities to which the application relates, or refuse to specify a person in a licence as the premises supervisor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Can I invite Mr. Dura to make his case now, please?
Hi, everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So this is a new business, and I offer a wide range of food items for my customers, and I want to add some alcohol of this range. I will always show my diligence in my operation, and I will always act as a very responsible manner. The license of these premises is something what I'm done, and I'm thinking seriously. And I ask a specialist to complete the process, and who give me a guidance on the licensing act 2003. And I will always make sure that I follow all my rules, and I make sure that challenge 25 is always used. I'm aware of the problem of the area, and I will make sure no single cans are sold those who are no street drinkers. There may other neighbor premises which cause antisocial behavior, but I cannot be blamed for the problems with their premises. I think I ask for reasonable hours, and I will always manage the shop with very strict rules. I don't know what else I can tell about this license, and I hope everyone is understanding me. I'm sorry for my English. That's what I can say.
Thank you, Mr. Dura. I will now invite members of the subcommittee to see if they have any questions for you. So, Councillor Mike Leddy, do you have any questions?
Yes, Chair. First of all, in the application, there is no designated premises supervisor. It states that the person is undertaking training. Is that still the case, or is there now going to be a named designated premises supervisor?
No, I'm the designated supervisor. I already applied for that, and I wait for my premises to receive it back to my address.
Okay. Second question, Chair. Clearly, the responsibility of a premises supervisor is of paramount importance to the licensing authority. If you're going to be the DPS, how are you going to be undertaking that role?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand very clear the question. Can you say one more time, please?
Okay. If you are going to be the DPS, the designated premises supervisor, what assurance am I going to have as part of the licensing authority that you're going to be doing the job properly?
Okay, I will use the age for 25 as well, and I will make sure I don't gonna sell any single can. It's gonna be like full set of the drinks, and I don't gonna sell to the minors of the drinkers of the street.
Okay. Now, this is, I'm assuming this is something, a typing error of sorts, because it says within the application, if I can find it, give me a moment, on page 21 of 40, it says that you're currently attending a course.
Yes.
Right. And then it also then says on page 23 of 40 that this is checks of the restaurant. What is the restaurant? Is the premises having a restaurant?
No, it doesn't have any restaurant.
Okay. And you gave a very good presentation, but how are you going to stop the problem drinkers that we have throughout the high street area from coming into your premises and purchasing alcohol?
Honest to be, I cannot stop what happened in the area, but I can make sure I cannot give them a reason to continue with this. Like if the drinkers, because we can know them who are on the street or what kind of person they coming in my shop, and to offer them small drinks or to disturb the area for them or for the kids or for someone else. Actually, it's a Romanian shop, and my clients are most of them, they are Romanian people, and I don't think they will. Anyway, they will sell Romanian alcohol anyway, and I don't think the people from the area they're looking for this kind of alcohol.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leddy. Councillor Ward, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, thank you, Chair.
I don't have any questions either. So we will now move on to those making representations. So Councillor Moore, would you like to make your representation?
Yes, Chair, yes, that's fine. Happy to do that. I'm going to try and put my camera on so you can see me, but I'm happy to turn it off if needed. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here today. I'm sure as a subcommittee, you're familiar with the problems problems that Erdington has, particularly in terms of the growing number of off licences we've had on the high street for many, many years. And I know several members of this committee will be familiar with the cumulative impact policy, which we lobbied for and was able to secure previously. It's no longer in effect, but that's a result of administrative issues and is no way a reflection of the fact that the problem has gone away. The problem has not gone away. It's actually got worse in recent times. A lot of that has been relating to the fact that we used to have a public space protection order. Sadly, that expired in 2018, and the council has been incredibly slow in its administrative processes of reinstating that. That is currently out to consultation, so fingers crossed that will be in place for Christmas. But it's particularly noticeable during the regular conversations we have with West Midlands Police, with Erdington BID, the Business Improvement District, and in addition to many residents, both who live within Erdington and neighbouring wards who visit the area, of the increasing problem of the street drinkers. And they particularly congregate down at the Six Ways end of the High Street, which York Road is just off. So this is literally around the corner from where they all sit on the benches. Anyone who's been to Erdington will have seen these street drinkers. They're there pretty much all the time. They sit there from the early morning till the early evening, drinking, sitting on benches, sitting on the grass planter outside Dixon's. Sometimes they sit on the bench just across the road outside Domino's on Six Ways. So it's pretty visible, the street drinking that takes place, and it's particularly unpleasant in some of it. You know, it's not a case of they're just sitting around not causing problems, but often they're particularly aggressive. They will shout, they will swear. We have a lot of complaints from people with young families and children who are unhappy with what their young children have had to listen to, sadly, as a result of the inappropriate behaviour that's taking place. And whilst some of that is perhaps on the lower end of the scale of public nuisance, there are very serious allegations have been made towards people who work on the high street and visit as well. And we've given an example of that because that's something that the BID were very, very concerned about when that allegation was made towards a member of staff. Understandably, that business is very concerned for the well-being of their staff, along with many others. And the high street has sadly not become a particularly pleasant area as a result of that. And a lot of that is due to the fact that we don't have the cumulative impact policy in place anymore. There have been attempts to get more licensed premises within this part of Erdington, but also because the powers that the police have to tackle street drinking, which a PSPO will allow them to do, they haven't been able to exercise for since 2018. So we're coming on almost 4 years now since that last February 2018. So it is a significant problem, and which is why we're opposing this application today, because quite frankly, I don't see how this premises will not contribute to the problem, given that all the others have done. Beyond reasonable doubt, it clearly is going to contribute if it's able to sell alcohol, because these street drinkers will go to this premises, they will go to the others. They're not stupid. They know what to do in order to obtain the alcohol they have. They don't always just buy single cans. If you're going to sit there all day drinking, you don't want to go to the shop every time you finish your can. You're going to buy it in bulk. But this idea that somehow stopping selling single cans is going to solve the problem is popular in my mind. Now, unfortunately, the applicant hasn't really touched on what experience that they have, whether they've run licensed premises before, whether they've how long they've traded in the Erdington area. So, we don't have any particular confidence that this is a business that will somehow be resistant to street drinkers in a way that the others have claimed that they have and clearly are not. So there's also quite often the excuses that we have with a lot of the licensed premises who have lost their licenses over the years is that, it was their staff, they didn't know what their staff were going up to. So that hasn't really been touched on as to how the staff will be kept in check. We talk about the training and that they'll but all the premises that had their licenses revoked, they all said that their staff would do the training. They all said they will comply with the law, and they were found to not be. And that is why their licenses were revoked. And a number of them were in the Six Ways end of High Street as well. I did a current tally this morning, Chair, and there's about 14 off licenses alone within the vicinity of this premises. That's just off licenses. That's not including on sale premises like the pubs, etc., which are also in close proximity. That's off licenses alone. With the addition of a 15th off licence in this small section of Erdington, I don't see how that is justified. I don't see how, quite frankly, the business will be able to compete given the sheer number of off licences within that area. And quite clearly, in order to be profitable, there will be a need to promote the business, to promote that, to encourage people to come and use the facilities there, which is going to drive down the price of alcohol. It's going to force trying to encourage people to come there, advertising, etc. All the kind of things which are just going to exacerbate an already existing problem. So myself and Robert, the other councillor for Robert Alden, we've been working many years now to tackle these problems. We're hopeful that the PSPO will be a tool in the box on that. We're hopeful that we'll be able to get the Committee of Impact Policy reinstated at some point in the near future. But as you know, our current licensing policy allows you as a committee. Sorry, I thought that was in silence. It allows you as a committee to take into account community impact, even in the absence of an area. And so, quite frankly, the only way that the licensing objectives can be fully secured today is by the refusal of this application, because quite frankly, it will contribute to an existing problem already. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ward, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Moore, you've spoken eloquently about the failings of Birmingham City Council in providing the right environment for public order to be maintained in Erdington. But can we really honestly make this applicant responsible for the ills of Erdington? Is he not just trying to earn an honest living here?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I have no doubt his intentions that he wants to make an honest living, but so do all the other off licenses. That is the challenge with the cumulative impact of this. They all want to make a living, so they all have to compete amongst themselves for the street drinkers, which are quite often the main focus on the high street, because they're there all day. They want to buy alcohol, and they will go to the various places in order to obtain that. Yes, you're quite right. There are failings on the part of Birmingham City Council. I don't intend to dwell too much on that, because quite frankly, that's outside the remit of this subcommittee. But the clear fact we have here is there is a sheer number of off licence in a very, very small area, and we're proposing to add a 15th one. And it's very difficult for me to go to the people of Erdington and say that the council takes this seriously, where in one hand it's proposing to put in a PSPO to tackle the issue of street drinking, and yet in the same breath grant another premises licence to enable more alcohol to be sold on the high street. That doesn't strike as any kind of joined up thinking, in my opinion. And certainly I'm here to represent, the businesses and the residents of Erdington who are very, very concerned about the potential impact of further off licences on the high street. I don't doubt the applicant's intentions. He doesn't want to contribute to the problems. But as I've said before, I've heard that with all the off licences that were revoked, sadly. And they have all contributed to the problems that we experience.
With so many off licences already existing in the area, are you seriously saying that one more outlet is going to make a difference?
For you, Chair, yes. I mean, I do think another off licence will create a difference. It's creating another opportunity for street drinkers somewhere new to go, particularly if you've got someone who is not experienced, who doesn't understand the local area. He's not going to know who the street drinkers are. So it's very easy for people to look like, the normal member of the public walking in and obtaining alcohol. Quite often we find that they approach new businesses because it's easier, because they're not known. Some of the businesses won't allow the street drinks to be sold because they know who they are. They're there all the time. But when you get a new business come along, it's very easy for them to obtain alcohol, because it's a fresh person. It's someone who's green, who perhaps doesn't understand and doesn't know who these people are, and they are able to get away with stuff that they perhaps wouldn't do in other premises where they are well known for causing problems. So I'm very concerned about the idea of a new premises being added to that. I appreciate, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 15, how much that problem can that cause, but it can have a real serious impact, because it's a new person on the market that's going to have to get themselves established. And as I touched on, particularly around quite often when the new premises is sadly granted on the high street, quite often we see this drive to promote the business, to encourage people to come visit it, because at the end of the day, it's not going to, they need, as you said, they need to make a living, and to do that, you've got to compete.
Do you not feel that you're trying to stifle free enterprise here and making it difficult for someone to open a new business, which I would have thought was something that you would want to encourage? Are you not putting this man at a disadvantage in having a shop that doesn't sell some of the items that people want to buy?
I'm all for free enterprise. I'm all for new businesses being created. I would love to have more businesses in Erdington, but quite frankly, businesses that aren't contributing to the negative impacts that are taking place in the area. We have businesses wanting to leave the high street because of the sheer number of off licenses that are there, because it has created an unsafe, unpleasant environment, particularly at the Six Ways end. So yes, I want more businesses to set up, but at the moment, these off licenses are driving people away, and that is not what we want. We want Erdington to be a vibrant local centre for people to feel safe to come and visit. You know, it currently has 1 million visitors a year. We want to grow that number, but we're not going to do that if all the empty premises that we have that crop up are just going to be filled with off licenses, because that's not going to attract people to our local centre.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Thank you, Chair. No more questions.
Thank you. Councillor Leddy, do you have any questions?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Moore, we've heard from the applicant that a large proportion of his business is done with the Romanian community, and that a good proportion of the alcohol for sale will be of Romanian origin. So are we targeting this business because of the past experiences that you've had with other outlets, whereas this applicant is targeting his market quite specifically, and that, you know, we're taking a sledgehammer to crack a nut?
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. I mean, I appreciate this is, looking at a niche market, as it were. So, but our opinion wouldn't matter what market this was appealing to. We would be here in objection to it, because, quite frankly, whilst he may be wanting to appeal to a certain community, those street drinkers will quite happily obtain alcohol wherever it is from. They don't necessarily only buy alcohol that's related to their nationality. They will get alcohol wherever it is available, wherever it is freely available, and particularly where it is cheap as well. Quite often, certainly the high street particularly, you'll see a lot of Polish cans all along the high street, because there are a number of Polish shops already in that area. As far as I'm aware, I don't believe we have a huge street drinking Polish community. There are some, no doubt, but I don't believe it's a simple case of that. Polish drinkers only drink Polish beer on the high street. I assume the street drinkers will be obtaining alcohol wherever it's freely available, and I don't think they're going to exclude this on the basis that it's aimed at, I believe it's the Romanian community, and simply was discounted on that basis. If it's selling alcohol and selling it cheaply, then I'm sure that they will go there regardless of what their ethnicity or background may be.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I have no questions for you, so we will now move to West Midlands Police's presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The application is seeking a premise licence for the supply of alcohol off the premises. The premises is located just off Erdington High Street, which has a heavy footfall. The premises are situated in an area that up until December 2020 was covered by a community impact policy. This was due to its high concentration of premise licence for the sale of alcohol on and off, which was included in the SIP to prevent further crime, disorder and public nuisance impacting on the licensing objectives. I've attached on page 3, on your Siemens packets, page 38, of what that mapped area was, and you'll see the premises is located inside that SIP location. Although the SIPs were removed from all areas within Birmingham, the issues of alcohol-related crime and disorder and public nuisance impacting the local community still remain present today and are ongoing. When considering this application and West Midlands Police objecting, we refer to the Licensing Act 2003 and Birmingham City Council Statement of Policy for 2015. I've attached this and taken a quote from page 14.4. The absence of a community impact area does not prevent any responsible authority or other person making representation on an application for the grant of a variation of a licence on the grounds that the premises will give rise to a negative community impact on one or more of licensing objectives. I've included this quote just to highlight that the application has been considered on its own merit and not just a community impact, because also I do make reference to the community impact area that no longer exists, but those issues still remain. It is common during the application stage and representation period to refer applications to the local neighbourhood policing team for their comments. The licensing team I work in covers all areas of Birmingham, and we value the individual expert knowledge of the neighbourhood teams who can give a more detailed input and perspective into the assessment of an application in regards to its ability to promote the licensing objectives. I contacted Errington's Sergeant Robinson on October 25th, making them aware of the new application and if they have any comments or concerns in regards to this application being granted. He stated they could not support this application and would supply a community impact statement of their concerns in relation to a new licensed premises being granted in an area already saturated with premises permitted to sell alcohol. Alcohol-induced behaviour is having a detrimental effect within the area on the local community, whilst also stretching police resources with the current demand to deal with these issues. Sergeant Robinson tasked PC Aziz to prepare an impact statement which clearly details these issues in the area that are linked to alcohol and social behaviour. I'm going to now pass you over to PC Aziz to run through that statement for you.
Good morning. I'll now like to make reference to my statement. So Ardington itself, it's a high population area. It's an ethnically diverse area with individuals from many backgrounds. And the rate of unemployment in Ardington, unfortunately, is significantly higher than the average. And as a result, it is considered to be one of the most deprived wards in Birmingham. Housing in Ardington is a combination of private properties as well as council and also HMOs, houses for multiple occupancies, as well as hostels. Now, Ardington is an impact area, and analysis has shown that there is a disproportionate amount of crime, demand, deprivation and harm in the area. Crimes in the area from analysis include thefts, robberies, criminal damage and antisocial behaviour, including street drinking, drug dealing and assaults. Now, Ardington High Street itself has been reported to be responsible for around 5% of the violent crime recorded within the West Midlands police area. And I'll just refer to figure 1, which is a breakdown of the crime and antisocial behaviour reported statistically from June 2020 to June just gone of this year. Figure 8 is an analysis that I've made, which was a screenshot from Google Maps, and then I've pinpointed all the stores within Ardington High Street and within the local vicinity that sell alcohol. Now, if you can see this in colour, I have marked each one in different colours. Now, the red X represents independent off-licence stores that are selling alcohol in the area, followed by the green X, which is a retail chain store selling alcohol, and then the blue X, which is the local pubs within the area. And I think it's fair to say we've got a large amount of stores within the area which are selling alcohol. And to break that down, it's a total of 14 stores. So that's 7 independent off licenses, and that's 4 local pubs, and the remainder being retail chain outlets as well. Now, the proposed off license, which the premises plans to be situated on York Road, which is just off Ardington High Street, and it is literally at most a 30-second to a 1-minute walk from Ardington High Street. And you can see on figure 2 very vividly just how close it is from the High Street. Now, the key problems reported to us as the police neighbourhood team surround highly intoxicated individuals on Ardington High Street, as well as begging and antisocial behaviour, and that includes on the surrounding roads as well. We at the policing team, we've been made aware of these issues from first-hand accounts that includes from governing bodies, local organisations and members of the public, whether it's in local shoppers, staff members, and we've also received information and feedback and concerns being raised during foot patrol, members of the community approaching us through our social media platforms, including WM Now, and also from witnessing first-hand account incidences involving intoxicated individuals, whether it's fights between groups of individuals that are intoxicated, thefts including shopliftings, and we are utilising police powers where necessary. Now, for over 5 years, street drinking has been a long-term problem for Addington, particularly the High Street, where individuals as well as groups of individuals will come together who are highly intoxicated, and as a result, the local community fear for their safety. Now, those under the influence of alcohol are intimidating and aggressive, particularly when they're gathered in groups, and become physically and verbally violent towards members of the public. And as a result, it results in a low footfall in attracting people into the area due to fears and concerns continue to be raised regarding this serious problem. I've had members of the community approach me telling me that they avoid the area or they come at the earliest hours within the day just to avoid individuals who are intoxicated. Now, the High Street considerably suffers from antisocial behaviour from these individuals, and we receive complaints from, as I said, from the public, from retail staff and business owners. And unfortunately, it appears to be a daily occurrence. There's no set time or set day where these drinkers will congregate. It's at any hour of the day, at any time. And unfortunately, innocent members of the community are having to deal with the abuse as well as the physical abuse. And unfortunately, it leads to criminal offences such as serious assaults, violent disorders and thefts, including shoplifting. We as a police are doing as much within our power to tackle the problem. That includes, from a policing perspective, in terms of proactive foot patrol and mobile patrolling the area, moving these street drinkers on. Where there are persistent street drinkers, they're being issued with community protection warnings to make them aware of their behaviour, which is a signed document, and it's a warning. If they do persist again, it'll be followed by a formal notice where the formal police action will be taken against them. Furthermore, those under the influence of alcohol also congregate outside the St Barnabas churchyard, which is located on Addington High Street. St Barnabas is also a route where I will take, we as a police take whilst we're patrolling Addington High Street, because there's reports, and from a first-hand account, I've seen street drinkers or those under the influence of alcohol congregate by the church as well as the churchyard, littering cans in the area and being abusive to staff when they're being challenged. Now, it is evident from figure 2 that there is a large amount of the high street consists of stores that serve alcohol, whether it's off licenses, pubs or retail stores. Some of these stores open as early as 8 o'clock in the morning, and closing times are very late, and a particular store closes as late as 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, on regular occasions, large groups of up to sometimes 20 people can be seen huddled together under the influence of alcohol. And they can be seen on and around the high street, and specific and particular hotspots include the Six Ways roundabout as well as alleyways. Now, there are frequent complaints from members of the community of those under the influence of alcohol loitering in alleyways and groups, intimidating members of the community who use these alleyways to gain access to their properties, or whether it's local car parks are situated within these alleyways, so the members of the community are just trying to get access to their vehicles. You can see this in a screenshot that I've taken in figure 3, which is on page 43 of your pack. And that displays 2 hotspot alleyways where we've got intoxicated individuals that loiter within these alleyways. So you've got alleyway 1, so if you're standing outside this premises, which is located on the right side, and then just across the road, we've got a much larger alleyway, so that's alleyway number 2, which I'll be referring to. These alleyways are, as I said, used by members of the public, and we do get complaints where you have groups of individuals who congregate there and are intimidating, and unfortunately we've had innocent members of the public assaulted within these alleyways when they're just trying to get access to their properties. Obviously, action from us as police, we're proactively approaching and making sure, you know, these alleyways are policed effectively and efficiently to make sure antisocial behaviour within there is prevented. So as I said, So further to that, as I said, there's it's a litter perspective as well. We're having beer cans, glass bottles being loitered around in the area, whether it's by the Six Ways Junction or in these alleyways or the churchyard. Further to that, we've also got drinkers using public phone boxes and these alleyways as toilets to urinate as well as defecate. We as an ABLE team proactively police the high street. It's one of the hotspot policing location for antisocial behaviour and policing incidences for us. However, unfortunately, the high street is not the only part of the demand for us. Erdington itself as an area, as I said, it's a deprived area, it's an impact area for us as a police. So we have to police the whole area. And Erdington is one of the prominent parts for us of concern. Unfortunately, it can't be policed 24/7 due to police resources and with COVID-19 as well, where we're having to put our focus into where it's possible and where we can police effectively. The high street is one of those, and we're doing it to the best of our possibility and within where resources allow. We are proactively targeting antisocial behaviour, and as I said, we're doing proactive foot patrol and mobile patrols to move individuals on, as well as issue them with formal warnings as stated. And the problem as well, so the street drinking as well, it's currently being managed by a proactive management plan. And that's a plan where we are regularly updating what we're doing in the area to tackle the problem from a policing perspective. And that includes working with partner agencies, including the council, the local councillors, and how we can come together to tackle the problem from different elements. Because I know we as a police, we're not, unfortunately, as much as I wish we could, solve the problem. We need to proactively work with others in addressing the matter. Now, from the number of premises available on the high street providing alcohol beverages, I believe a further off licence is not necessary. The area, unfortunately, is now suffering with the aftermath of various off-licence supplying alcohol. And I believe it's unfair on the local community for this off-licence to be approved. It is a strong belief of the Erdington Police Neighbourhood Team that the motion for this store to sell alcohol will only add to the further detrimental impact around alcohol-related antisocial behaviour in the local area. There is currently a huge issue around antisocial behaviour on the high street, and I feel that the store will negatively impact the local area. West Midlands Police are currently dealing with the disorders presented on the high street due to the large number of off-licences, and it would only be a further strain on the service for a further off-licence to be opened. It's not only a strain on us as a police, but also the ambulance service. We have many individuals intoxicated who can barely walk, who can barely communicate with us. So then you've got the demand on the ambulance service having to attend as well, and to deal with the aftermath as well. Additionally, with the local knowledge of the area, the opening of another off-licence will result in further police resources having to be put in the area. In my professional opinion, if this application is granted, it will be detrimental to the local community, as there will be further disorder and antisocial behaviour in the area. The off-licence will result in a further growth of drinkers congregating and causing antisocial behaviour on York Road. It is highly likely, as a result, West Midlands Police will be required to respond to these incidences around antisocial behaviour and crime. And unfortunately, at this time, resources are already stretched due to the current climate of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Erdington Neighbourhood Team have reviewed the impact that this proposal would have from a policing perspective and have taken into account the local community's views and concerns. Therefore, we strongly believe this application should not be granted. Thank you.
Thank you, PCSs. We'll leave it there and we'll open the floor to any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I know that Mr. Dura has his hand up currently. What I will say is he will get a chance to have his say again in his closing submission. So we will come back to you, Mr. Dura. Councillor Leddy, do you have any questions?
Yes, Chair. On page 38 of the bundle that we've got, it states that there are 14 licensed premises already on Erdington High Street. And we've heard from a constable of the local police team, as well as from West Midlands Police as a whole. What initiatives has the local police team undertaken in relationship to those 14 other licensed premises? Because the cumulative impact zone and the PSPO orders for the area clearly haven't worked with the street drinkers. So what other initiatives have they taken in regards to the possible source of the alcohol that these street drinkers consume?
Thank you for the question. So at the moment, as I said, we're looking at the problem from different perspectives in terms of tackling it and developing interventions. As well as that, so it's building relationships with these off licenses, making them aware of the issue and, you know, how they can better support us, because it won't be done itself through silo working. So we've got the public space protection order, which we're hoping will launch in December, if touch wood. And then with the off-licensed stores, I looked into proactive interventions to tackle the problem. And one of those included launching, it was, unfortunately, as I said, single cans, stopping the sale of single cans doesn't solve the problem. But that was notice from the conditions, not all the stores had that on their conditions. And it was a voluntary agreement with the stores to launch this intervention where they stopped the sale of high-strength alcohol, single cans, to non-street drinkers. Most of the stores were on board with this and have launched this within their stores. And as I said, it's a voluntary basis, so there's nothing to sign. It's more of a community intervention to see whether how effective it is, because it's been launched in other parts of the country, including Plymouth, and they saw a great sort of outcome with it. They saw a decrease in violent disorder and street drinking in their area. Unfortunately, I think it's not as effective within our area for numerous reasons. I think, unfortunately, as stated, the sale of single cans won't solve the problem. These individuals are congregating on Erdington High Street for long hours of the day, so they don't need to particularly go into a off license to purchase one. They can purchase packs. And as I said, many of these drinkers congregate between 5 to 10 to 20 groups of individuals, so they can share the money together and purchase a large pack of alcohol. So we as a police, we are honestly doing as much as we can from an intervention perspective, through proactive police in the area, approaching these drinkers, issuing them with formal warnings. So yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I mean, am I to understand that people are bringing booze into Erdington High Street rather than purchasing from premises within the High Street?
No, they are purchasing from the High Street. The reason they attend Erdington High Street is their alcohol is easily accessible. As I said, yeah, so with the numerous off licenses in the area, hence why I launched the intervention with these off licenses to support us in making sure that the sale of alcohol is essentially to the right audience, if that makes sense. And that was just a proactive way in tackling it and building a relationship with these off licenses to address the problem.
Again, Chair. So if they're purchasing, they're intoxicated and they're purchasing alcohol from the High Street, how many reports has West Midlands Police made to Birmingham City Council, the licensing authority of those premises?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information to hand. However, we are working closely with the council where incidences like that come to light, where we put that information together, proactively approaching these off licenses, checking their CCTV where we have knowledge or belief that they have sold to someone that's under the influence of alcohol. We do, where possible, and as soon as possible attend these stalls, speak with them, get the time and look at their CCTV to review this.
Chair, I mean, is it possible that Mr. Kennedy could, our licensing officer, could tell us how many of those 14 premises have been reported to Birmingham City Council?
Thank you, Chair. We haven't got any information available today as to how many matters have been reported. Under the Licensing Act, if the police have got concerns that a premises are trading inappropriately and trading in a manner which are undermining the licensing objectives, then they can formally apply for the review of that licence and bring the licence back before a licensing subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ward, do you have any questions for the police?
I do. Thank you, Chair. Officers, is it not the case that if we were to close 7 of the 14 existing off licences, that we would merely be doubling the business of the 7 that remain? And is it not the case that if we closed 13 of the 14, then all of the existing customers would go to the one outlet, probably having to pay higher prices, but that basically cutting the numbers would not make one scrap of difference? I put it to you that the addition of 1 extra off licence would make not one scrap of difference to antisocial behaviour in Erdington.
It's fair to say, my professional opinion, it's contributing to the problem. In terms of public trust as well, for the public to see another stall serving alcohol on the high street, we're losing public trust, we're losing public faith. And for us as a police, it's important because at the end of the day, we're serving the public. And proactively policing the area, we've got hotspot locations where these drinkers congregate, and it's almost as though this high street is there to serve them.
May I add to that? Sorry, piece of this. I think that the question asked is, we're not looking to close any more premises. Obviously, we're objecting this application to grant 1 more. I get the statement you're making about 1 more won't make a little bit of difference. But I think the angle we're trying to come from is we're trying to get control of the situation with the 14 licensed premises that we already have. So when they're under control and the issues have been resolved, then in future, we wouldn't have issues with new premises opening. But at this time, that it will just add more and more to the detriment. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, officers, and thank you, Chair. No further questions.
I've just had a notification in the chat that Councillor Moore wishes to answer one of Councillor Leddy's questions, so I'll let him say his piece on that.
Sure, thank you, Chair. When I checked the licensing register this morning, there are 8 licences which have either been revoked or have their licences surrendered. So I think that answers Councillor Leddy's question of what action has been taken about off licences, that there are some which are no longer trading as a result of being found to be engaged in criminal activity. So there's been a reduction of 8, but as referred to earlier, there's still another 14.
I will now invite West Midlands Police to make a closing statement.
Thank you, Chair. There's not much to add. There's been a lot that's been covered already. Like I said, we don't question the applicant's intentions to run a successful and premise. And he said he's taking a current course at the moment to obtain his personal license, get knowledge, get all that sorted. We don't question that. The applicant's agent himself, after we objected, did try to suggest additional conditions, mainly around single cans to mitigate the issues with street drinking. But as we discussed today, that's not enough. It's the stance of Westminster Police that no conditions will mitigate their concerns, and that the granting of another premise license in an area with an abundance of alcohol-related crime and disorder and from nuisance, especially for off sales, would only exacerbate the ongoing issues associated with Erdington. That's it from Westminster Police. Yep, that's all. Thank you, Chair and Councillors.
Thank you very much. Councillor Moore, I'll now invite you to make a closing submission.
Thank you, Chair. I think the key thing I just want to kind of stress, and certainly it kind of touched on earlier with Councillor Eddy saying that the cumulative impact policy and the PSPO didn't work. I would disagree with that. I think both of those were incredibly effective at dealing with the problem. The issues we experience now are a direct result of those no longer being in force, and it's been particularly noticeable the number of complaints we've received throughout street drinking since 2018 when the PSPO lapsed. That is certainly the start of the problems arising, because until then the police did have powers for these street drinkers. They can issue the wood notices. They can require them to leave the high street, and in worst case scenarios take further action. And the cumulative impact policy helped because it prevented new premises coming on to exacerbate the problem and the cumulative impact that took effect. As I've said, neither of those are currently in force, and it's worth bearing in mind that we had a cumulative impact policy that demonstrates the scale of the problem. Very few parts of Birmingham had such policies, most of which were in the city centre itself, where you would expect a considerable amount of licensing activity. And again, the scale of the problem is evidenced by the fact that our chief executive came to visit the high street to look at the problems that we're experiencing. Now, I don't think she would have done that lightly if this wasn't an issue. This isn't, I don't want, I'm slightly concerned we don't want to trivialise the problems that the off licences are creating on the high street. And certainly I would like to make it quite clear that I would not be here today if I thought this wouldn't contribute to the problems and if it wouldn't breach the licensing objectives. I'm here because I am concerned it will. And if I thought that could be sufficiently discharged through conditions, then we would be recommending conditions here today, not asking you to not grant the licence. We've done that with other off licences where we've had confidence that they have the experience and the ability to ensure they don't contribute to the problems. But we don't have that confidence here today. And we need this two-pronged approach to tackle the problem, because it's, enforcement is important, and the police touched on the good work that they're doing to tackle that. But at the end of the day, that will be undermined if we continue to allow more and more off licences to open up in such a small area. And, I appreciate Councillor Ward keeps saying, what will one more do? Well, we don't want this to be the straw that broke the camel's back, because Erdington is on the cusp of either, growing and fulfilling its potential or going into rapid decline as a result of people leaving and no longer visiting. And, we need to ensure that that does not take place. That is why refusal of this application is super important. And I appreciate, I said the wrong phrase earlier. It's been a while since I've been on licensing. I said beyond reasonable doubt, but it's balance of probabilities. On the balance of probabilities, will this premises contribute to the existing issues and being breached the licensing objectives? And I would strongly put to you that it will do that. And that is why we're asking for you to refuse the application today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Mr. Dura, do you want to make a closing submission?
Thank you. On the end of my participation on this meeting, I would like to say thanks to everyone who was staying in this meeting, and one more time to let them know. I don't want to be blamed for the social behavior, what happened in the area because of my license. I would like to say one more time, there might be other neighbor premises which cause antisocial behavior, but I cannot be blamed for the problem with their premises. That was all what I can say, and thanks one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Dura. I will now ask that all parties leave the Microsoft Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into the private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. You will be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So thank you for everyone for attending and their time this morning. You are now free to leave the meeting. And can we ask for the live stream to be stopped, please?